I'm 81 years old, and I lost my wife 3 years ago after 52 years of marriage. I still keep her cup on the kitchen shelf, even though the handle is chipped. I can't bring myself to throw it out. It feels like the smallest thing holding the world together. People tell you time dulls grief, but whoever said that never woke up to make coffee for a ghost. It doesn't dull. It just changes shape. The silence stretches itself thin through your days. You start to carry it without noticing, like wearing a heavy coat in summer. And after a while, you forget what it felt like not to feel its weight. I thought by now I'd be better at living alone. But the truth is, every day still begins with me turning to the side where she used to sleep. I don't even think about it anymore. It's just muscle memory. Half the time, I still say we instead of I. After 52 years, it's hard to learn singular again. When you spend a lifetime with someone, you start to believe there's more time, that you'll have another evening to talk, another weekend to fix the faucet, another summer for one last trip. I believed that so deeply, it cost me the only thing that ever truly mattered. We met when I was 25, at a church picnic of all places. I wasn't looking for anyone serious. I was busy trying to climb at work, ambitious, proud, too focused on proving I was worth something. She had this laugh that made people turn their heads. Not loud, just clean, like it came from someplace good inside her. When she laughed, I felt something unclench in me. For the first few years, we were a team. We lived in a small apartment, drafty windows, a second-hand couch, constant noise from upstairs. But we were happy. We'd argue about bills and burnt dinners and whose turn it was to do laundry, and then we'd laugh about it before bed. I remember her curling up next to me, whispering that we were lucky, even when nothing felt lucky. But somewhere down the road, something subtle changed. I started coming home later, not because I wanted to be away from her, but because I thought I was building a future for us. Promotions, better pay, a house in a quieter neighborhood. She never complained, not really. She just started waiting up less often. She'd kiss me goodnight when I walked in and say, "Don't work too hard, love." And I'd tell her, "Just a few more months, then things will settle." They never did. That's how you lose someone. You don't notice it happening. It's not the big arguments or the slammed doors. It's the hours you trade without seeing their cost, the missed dinners, the half-conversations, the way habits of love turn into habits of absence. By my 40s, career was everything. I was always in motion. She carried the rest of life. Raising our daughter, remembering birthdays, doing the small things that made our home feel alive. I told myself I was grateful, but I rarely said it out loud. I just assumed she knew. That's one of the worst assumptions you can make. There was one night, our 25th anniversary. I was supposed to be home early. She'd planned a dinner, cooked all my favorite dishes. I remember calling her from the office past 8, telling her I had to stay late to finish a report. She went quiet for a long time. Then she just said, "All right." Her voice had this softness to it, the kind that meant she wasn't angry. She just decided not to expect anything more. I didn't realize how much that silence would follow me. When I finally got home, she was asleep on the couch. Candles had burned down to puddles of wax. The food was cold. I sat there looking at her, thinking I'd make it up to her the next day. But the next day never came, not in the way I imagined. There's always something else waiting, the next project, the next deadline, the next reason to delay tenderness. Years later, after I retired, I thought we'd have time to start again. We bought a small cottage by a lake. She loved it there. Every morning she'd sit on the porch with her tea and talk to the birds. I didn't understand how she could find joy in something so quiet. I always needed to be doing something, fixing, planning. It took me decades to see that she was already living the moments I kept postponing. Then the illness came, slow at first. I remember the first time she forgot a friend's name, mid-sentence. We laughed it off. Then she started mixing up dates, getting lost on familiar streets. The doctor said the word I never wanted to hear, dementia. It wasn't aggressive, but it was unrelenting. I thought I would be ready to take care of her, but nothing prepares you to watch the person who knew you best start to fade. She'd ask me where her mother was. Her mother had been gone 30 years. She looked at me sometimes with this puzzled kindness, like she knew she should know me but couldn't quite place. How? I'd smile and tell her everything was fine, but inside I was already unraveling. There was one afternoon, near the end, when she looked out at the lake and said, "It's beautiful, isn't it?" I said yes, it was. She nodded and added, "I think I used to sit here with someone I loved." I didn't correct her. I just sat there, holding her hand, pretending that memory was still intact for both of us. After she passed, I went through her things. In one of her old drawers, tucked behind scarves and letters, I found a small notebook, just a few pages filled. Simple notes, dates, grocery lists, reminders like buy milk or call daughter. But on one page, in her handwriting, it said, "He's doing his best. Don't forget how much he loves you." She'd written that when the dementia had already started. Even then, she was protecting me from guilt I hadn't yet earned. It took losing her to understand what love actually is. It's not in the grand gestures or the anniversaries with flowers. It's in the tiny details, the shared coffee in the morning, the sound of her slippers in the hallway, the way she'd hum when she cooked. I thought love was something you could build and then hold on to forever. But it's not. It's a living thing. It needs your time, your presence, your awareness. And once you stop feeding it, even for the right reasons, it starts to drift away quietly. After the funeral, people came and went with their condolences, nice words, casseroles, practiced sympathy. Then the house went silent. You learn very quickly that loss isn't an event. It's a presence. It moves in with you. You catch it standing beside you in the mirror. You hear it in the chair that doesn't creak anymore because no one sits there. For a long time, I filled that space with noise. Television left on, radio humming in empty rooms. But eventually I stopped fighting the quiet. Now every morning I make tea for two. I drink one and leave the other on the table. It cools there untouched for as long as it takes me to finish mine. It's not ritual. It's conversation in its own way. When you reach this age, you start measuring life not in years, but in moments you can still feel. I don't remember the dates of my promotions anymore, or what kind of car I drove. But I remember the sound of rain on our first roof, and how she'd tuck her feet under me when she was cold. I remember how she used to say my name softly when she wanted to ask a question she already knew the answer to. Those are the things that matter now. The rest has all faded. If anyone younger ever listens to this, I suppose there's one thing I'd want them to hear. Don't wait to love fully. Don't assume the people you care about will always be there after the next email, the next meeting, the next season. Love doesn't pause politely until you're ready. It withers quietly when neglected. and when you finally turn back toward it, you may find it's become a memory instead of a voice. I used to think I was a good husband. Maybe in some ways I was. I was faithful, dependable, decent. But I wasn't present. I was too busy being busy. I wanted to give her everything except what she actually wanted. Me, unoccupied, and paying attention. She never blamed me for it. But I blame myself now, in the soft way that comes with understanding, not cruelty. Sometimes, late at night, I still talk to her. I tell her about our daughter, about how she's raising her own kids now. She reminds me so much of her mother. Same patience, same laugh. I like to think some part of her mother's gentleness carried forward. Maybe that's how love survives, not in the people who stay, but in the things they quietly leave behind. I don't expect forgiveness. I'm too old to bargain. I've learned to live with what I missed. But if I could go back, even once, I wouldn't change the house or the car or the money. I'd change the evenings. I'd come home early and sit with her on that old couch, hand in hand, saying nothing at all. I didn't know silence could be so valuable. These days, I spend a lot of time on that porch she loved. Sometimes the sun hits the water just right, and for a moment it feels like she's sitting beside me again. I don't talk much anymore, but I don't need to. There's a kind of peace in simply remembering without reaching for more. I've been told I should move on. People mean well when they say that. But you don't move on from love. You just learn to live in its echo. And honestly, I'm fine with that. The echo's gentle, familiar. It keeps me company when the days stretch long. If this story means anything to you, maybe just take a moment today to call someone, to sit beside them, to really listen. Not because time is running out, but because it always is, and you'll never notice until it's too late. I can still hear her voice sometimes, clear as a bell, calling me in for dinner. I always think, just for a second, that maybe I'll walk into the kitchen and see her again. She'll turn around, smiling, and ask if I washed my hands. I'd give anything to answer her one more time. But that moment's gone now. All that's left is the love, and maybe that's enough.